We talk a lot about sustainability in the city of Lakewood, and today we're here with a company celebrating its 40th anniversary that has established a number of sustainable practices and allowed it to grow into one of the largest independent tree and landscape businesses in the metro area. We're here with Ralph Bronk, owner of Mountain High Tree, Lawn, and Landscape. Thanks for having us, Ralph.
Yeah. Good morning.
So tell us about how you've grown so much in these last 40 years.
Well, I think we've been fortunate to have a group of people that have enabled us to grow at the pace we have. And of course, there's a need and a demand for it. So we've kind of jumped on that and kind of grown every year over the last 40 years.
You have a great story about how you got started.
The old chainsaw and a pickup truck story. So we started with just one pickup and a couple chainsaws, and we kept building from there. We just did tree pruning in the early days, and we've added our additional services over the years, and now we have a pretty much full complement of all landscape care services and landscaping, everything but mowing. We don't mow or do weekly maintenance.
How many employees do you have now?
I believe we're up to high 90s, 90, 97, 98.
In the introduction I said you're one of the largest independent lawn and landscape businesses in the metro area. What does it mean when I say independent? What does that mean to you?
Well, my interpretation is just, we're family owned, and we don't have any outside the area headquarters. Some of the larger companies around are headquartered in the Midwest or back east, and they start developing other branches in different parts of the country. So they're not an independent in the sense that they have their roots in different parts of the country. Do
you find that people like that? That helps you get business?
Yeah, I think it does. They like the local feel.
Yeah.
And we're pretty hands-on, and we've been here a long time, and we certainly appreciate the local business.
I also mentioned in the introduction sustainability. Tell the viewers a little bit about some of your sustainable practices, how and why you do that.
Well, certainly among the most sustainable is we recycle 100% of our green waste. So all of our branches that are pruned from trees, or if we remove a tree, we recycle all of that green waste into our mulch products.
What advice would you give the homeowner for lawn and landscape care?
Well, I mean, it depends on how much they want to be involved personally. There's all kinds of information, of course, available on the internet these days that you can sort through to help you determine what is best to do. We're certainly more than happy to meet with homeowners and kind of run through the gamut of what they need to know, and allowing them to do whatever portions of it they want to do themselves. We can coach them or give them resources to allow them to do that themselves, and whatever they're not wanting or able to do, the bigger trees, for instance, then of course we can, perform those type of services that the homeowner can't. But so it's very varied. It depends on the level of involvement that a homeowner wants to be. We have some who want to be involved, and some are busy with their day-to-day lives that they don't have time to do so or have an interest in doing so.
So we've talked a lot about tree pruning and landscaping. Is there a chance, I'm dressed for work here, is there a chance you could put me to work and kind of show me how it's done?
Certainly.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
So Ralph, we're about to demonstrate something called deep root watering, which I gather is especially important during the winter months, fall and winter months. Let's talk about the importance of it and how we do it.
All right, and even though we do call it deep root watering, we're actually wanting to water the top 10 inches of the soil, because that's where the tree roots are going to be. Okay. Now this is a new tree, so we know approximately where the root ball is, so we're going to kind of concentrate in that area. And we do it with these devices because it's quick and thorough.
So we just pull the trigger here. We're hooked up to
leave it on
truck.
about 10 seconds, and that applies,
oh yeah, I can feel it going through there. Yeah.
About a couple gallons of water to each place, and then we just pick it up and move it half a foot and push it back in, and repeat the process.
Okay.
If we were doing big established trees, we would be doing many holes within the drip line and even outside the drip line, because an established tree, the roots are well beyond where the branches stop. On a new tree, they're of course in close to the tree.
So we're doing this obviously with commercial equipment, but the homeowner can do this themselves, right?
Yes, and it's not mandatory that you use a device that goes in the ground. You can also just literally get your hose attached, keep it drained out so it doesn't freeze in the hose. Just have a fisheye sprinkler head that you screw on and then set it in areas around the trees. Leave the irrigation on, leave the water on for long enough to water to approximately 10 inches deep, depending on the sprinkler head and how much water pressure that could take, anywhere from 20 minutes to 40 minutes in one location, and just try to thoroughly water the entire root zone of your trees. I suggest people do it on a Sunday morning or someday when they're available to keep moving it around. And it might take half a day depending on how many trees you're trying to water, but it's easy to do yourself. You would want to think about doing it potentially once a month through the winter when the irrigation systems are off. And if we have a hot, dry spell in the summer, it's also the supplemental water. It's also beneficial to do it once or twice during the growing season, because typically on our irrigation systems, we water for maybe 15 minutes to satisfy the turf or lawn needs. But often you'll see tree roots coming up top into the turf area. Some of that is because we don't often water deep enough to give those trees what they want in the roots. All right, here we're going to talk about structural or corrective pruning of young trees. They're often overlooked as far as needing to be pruned. So it's often minimal, but it's important and helpful to the long-term ability for the tree to grow stronger. But what we look for is just branches. This is one, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, that's kind of growing into other branches. So it really is not going to be a useful branch in the future. So we just take those out. Anything dead or broken wants to come out, or where it's going to be what we call cross and interfering or growing into other parts of the tree. So those are the ones that we would target. So we have one here that's going to be growing into this branch. So that gets pruned off. So the idea is to make as small of a cut as you can, less damage to the tree. And if you do it when the tree is young, of course, the branches are smaller.
So Ralph, this one looks like it's potentially growing into other branches as you were talking about. And sometimes it's tempting maybe to just snip it up here, but talk about proper pruning a little bit.
Well, you can always start with making your cut where you suggested up front. That way you get the bulk of it out of your way.
Okay.
And you're not worried about it, ripping if it's a bigger branch.
Right.
But then you want to make your final cut. And it's a little hard to see on this small branch, but there's something called a branch collar. On this bigger branch, which we're not going to prune off, the collar is a little more evident, and this one's even more evident up here. So it's right, you can almost see a ridge where the collar is. So you want to cut just outside of that collar. And that's called the branch collar or bark ridge.
Probably a little more, huh?
Slight bit more.
Okay.
It's probably better to leave a little bit more than you want than to cut it too close. We used to do what was called flush cuts, and we thought that was the proper thing, but luckily we learned from experiences over time and people who have actually devoted a lot of their study to proper cuts on trees and how it affects the tree internally. So if you make too big of a cut or too close of a cut, the cut is A, bigger, and B, seems to affect other parts of that branch later on in the tree's life. So proper pruning cuts are very important in the long-term sustainability of the tree.
Well, Ralph, I can't tell you how informative and helpful this has been with our semi-arid climate here, advice on lawn care and watering. And even though all of our trees are not native trees, we love them, and Lakewood is a Tree City, USA, so we appreciate the tips that you have been giving the viewers. And congratulations on 40 years in business.
Thank you.
And thanks so much for hosting us today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Stay with us as we see what's happening over at Brady High School.